Y'all, SmackDown sucks. It just stinks. From top to bottom, it is riddled with bad content. The roster is garbage, and it is sad how awful this show has truly become. I don't know whose genius idea it was to make this show 3 hours, but this has been an embarrassment ever since. This show is awful. It's awful. I'm tired of seeing the same people wrestle every single week in bad matches. You understand what I'm saying? And the fact is that, right now at the time I'm recording this, it's around like 10:15, right? So I'm stopping watching this 45 minutes early because I don't care what happens next. I really don't. I don't care who wrestles. I don't care who cuts a promo. I don't care about any of that garbage because it's all boring, predictable nonsense. And the simple truth is that from top to bottom, the women's roster is atrocious. We're going to talk about this in a second, but the women's roster is just not good. There's nothing to look forward to on SmackDown. And instead of them doing this 3 hour, they're like, oh, well, we need to give the talent a time to breathe. The mid-card needs improvement. The undercard, all the women's division, the men, like it's all garbage. You did an extra hour of this show so we can get more time with Pretty Deadly and Garza? Like, this is embarrassing. Nobody cares about Garza, nobody cares about Pretty Deadly, and nobody cares about anything that's taking place on this show. So now let's go ahead and get into it. The first 10 minutes of this episode was basically wasted by Pat McAfee and Michael Cole talking about how great Indiana is, so we can skip this. Then we had Kevin Owens and Joe Tessitore in a little bit of a segment, and basically they're discussing, the situation basically with Kevin Owens, talking about how bad Joe Tessitore and Michael Cole's journalism has been. And then from this, we basically get Kevin Owens basically telling Joe Tessitore, you think you're a tough guy? And they're both like about to break character, so that was kind of funny how they kind of laughed about that. But pretty much Kevin Owens says, I'm here to take my title. So he grabs the Winged Eagle belt, and then walks out. You know what I'm saying? It's like, dude, what? He's about to walk out, I should say, right? He basically is upset that everyone, like Punk and Rollins and everyone else is talking about challenging for these belts and are just assuming that they're going to have to fight Cody or Gunther and not even giving him a chance. You know what I'm saying? And Kevin Owens brings that up, grabs his belt, starts to walk away, and then CM Punk shows up. CM Punk basically comes out and apologizes for overlooking Kevin Owens and said that, it's not a guarantee that Cody's going to win the Rumble, but Punk says that it's a guarantee that he's going to win the Royal Rumble, and that when he wins the Royal Rumble, he's going to challenge for Kevin Owens if Kevin Owens can take the championship tomorrow at the Rumble. And the simple truth is here, Kevin Owens is not winning that match. You know what I'm saying? I'm tired of this whole announcing you're in the Rumble stuff. You remember back then when no one would do this garbage? You'd get maybe a few people announced during the Rumble at best, and then it would be mostly surprises from then on out. You wouldn't know beforehand what was going to take place. Your job is to be a wrestler. So when the biggest prize in your profession is to be a world champion, and that's potentially at stake with you winning a Rumble, obviously you should be in the match. There's no such thing as you need to declare for the Rumble. You should already be in the match before it even is announced. You see what I'm saying? So they just waste a bunch of time with that garbage, and I thought both championships were supposed to be suspended above the ring and relinquished by both competitors. So why is it that Kevin Owens just walks up and grabs his Winged Eagle championship, and then Cody Rhodes was seen on the Royal Rumble kickoff show they did earlier today? Cody Rhodes was seen with his championship during that as well. So what's the point? Do you see what I'm saying? And none of this stuff makes any sense. Apparently, they have to relinquish their belts, but Cody was just having his belt like earlier today. So just stop the nonsense with this garbage, man. It's really stupid. CM Punk basically says, he wants to main event WrestleMania. Kevin Owens says, yeah, Mania, main eventing means a lot. I've done it twice, and you haven't done it at all, which basically means you're a big failure. That's word for word from Kevin Owens himself. He called CM Punk a failure because he hasn't main evented WrestleMania. Now, keep in mind, Kevin Owens main evented night 1 of WrestleMania. Night 1 is not a true main event of WrestleMania. What it is like a mid-card on an old WrestleMania. You see what I'm saying? So like back in the day, right, like in the late 2000s, basically until they added the 2-night Mania, right, the equivalent of main eventing night 1 is like whatever match is like directly in the middle of the card or like the opening match of the show. That's all main eventing a night 1 means. Unless it's a special match like The Rock and Roman versus Cody and Seth, then that's worthy of being called an actual main event level match. But Kevin Owens versus Stone Cold Steve Austin is not a main event level match. You know what I'm saying? That's a show starter to get the crowd hype. You know what I'm saying? That's all that is. You get what I mean? Like, Kevin Owens is not a main eventer. That everyone's just using these terms like they're actual main eventers. You guys aren't main eventers. Have you main evented night 2 of Mania? No. Have you main evented WrestleMania and it was one night? No. So stop the nonsense. You're not a main eventer, and neither is CM Punk, at least yet. So stop that garbage. Then CM Punk brings up that Logan Paul beat Kevin Owens and that Kevin Owens has lost 5 championship matches at Royal Rumble. You know, nobody cares about this stuff. We can skip over this and get on to whatever was next because, quite frankly, CM Punk had nothing to say here, and neither did Kevin Owens. It was a pretty boring promo segment that nobody cares about. Then we have Jimmy Uso versus Carmelo Hayes. This was actually a really good match. Now, I will say this. Jimmy Uso in this singles run, I guess he's trying to do a singles run that mimics his brothers from last year, right, Jey Uso's. But Jimmy Uso's doing a solid job. He's been wrestling solid matches on SmackDown. I thought this match tonight was genuinely good with him and Carmelo Hayes. I thought the choreography was good. The moves that they were using against each other were good. They were creative. Jimmy Uso showing that he has more than 4 moves, so that's cool. Carmelo Hayes, though, man, we need to open up a dialogue about this guy because Carmelo Hayes is truly awesome. I mean, he is. He has the in-ring work down pat. His athleticism is good. He has a good moveset. His entrance and presentation is good. He's very solid on the mic. And on top of that, Carmelo Hayes is on the way younger side of the roster. So he has every single attribute of being a future, world champion or everything like that. He's just great. He really is, man. I really just had to sit back and just glaze because it's like, wow, this dude's amazing. You know what I'm saying? To me personally, I think that him and LA Knight are the best parts of Friday Night SmackDown as currently constructed. That's just the way I feel about it. Carmelo Hayes will never get his just due because Triple H is an awful booker who has the Street Profits sitting at home right now while Pretty Deadly's getting pushed to the top of the tag team division. But, I mean, again, it just is what it is. Right? Triple H doesn't know what he's doing. He has no idea what he's booking. He's just booking what he wants rather than what's actually good for the company, or what's good for actual entertainment. There's no way that this dude is actually pushing Pretty Deadly in the Motor City Machine Bums and Garza over the Street Profits. You know what I mean? It's egregious. Even over someone who like Karrion Kross, right? I would say is a jobber because that's just what his track record has shown. But there's no way that Karrion Kross is relegated to being an undercard jobber. But we have to actually sit here and watch Pretty Deadly and Garza go out every week. You're telling me that Karrion Kross isn't better than Pretty Deadly? He isn't better than Garza? Montez Ford isn't better than Garza? You know what I'm saying? Angelo Dawkins isn't better than Garza? Carmelo Hayes is losing more matches than like Garza and Pretty Deadly and DIY? Like, these dudes are not better than this it's just, the booking decisions are just really bad. That's the point here, right? Everyone is relegated to being a jobber. Xavier Woods and Kofi have done nothing in the tag team division in years at this point, but Pretty Deadly's about to have a tag championship match probably within the next month or two, so it doesn't make any sense. You have what you have, and we have to look at it objectively speaking and just understand that the booking here is atrocious. Everything that Triple H does is not, it's just not good. It just isn't. He has a couple stories here and there that are great, but really, in reality, it's not going to work. Long term, nobody cares about any of this nonsense. And the crowd tonight was absolutely dead. Evaporated for every match. Jimmy Uso and Melo, even though that match was good, the crowd was evaporated. Michin versus Chelsea Green, we'll talk about that in a second. The crowd was evaporated. Nothing about SmackDown has main event level feel. Nothing is an interesting story. Nothing is making you have to watch SmackDown. You don't need to watch SmackDown for anything. You just don't. So realistically speaking, going forward, I'm probably just going to start watching the first hour and a half of the show, and then the review will be out literally at 11 p.m. because there's just nothing else to really talk about with these shows, man. But Melo versus Jimmy was a good match. I'm tired of the ending, though. The ending wasn't good, I'd say. Jimmy Uso basically rolls up Carmelo Hayes, uses the tights a little bit, and that's it. I wasn't a big fan of that. I think Carmelo Hayes needs to start winning matches because I think it's time to push Carmelo Hayes. He's proven that he's arguably the best roster. He's the best roster member on SmackDown right now. He's wrestling every week. He's cutting promos every week. He's putting himself over. He's amazing, right? He really just is. You know what I'm saying? So I don't really understand, what the thought process is behind Carmelo Hayes not being pushed already. Braun Breaker came up to the main roster. He's been pushed. He's had 2 bad Intercontinental Championship reigns so far, and he's relegated to wrestling once every 6 weeks. But somehow he has a title, and Carmelo Hayes is relegated to being an undercard jobber, losing to Braun Strowman, Jimmy Uso, and other people. It's egregious. Anyways, then we got Michin versus Chelsea Green. This is probably one of the worst matches I've ever seen in my life, right? It was slow. It was clearly choreographed, which made it look boring and look weak and look fake. You know what I'm saying? Then you also have the fact that both of these women are just not good. They're not, right? Women's wrestling right now is in a horrible spot in WWE. In NXT, it's great. But in WWE's main roster, it's not good. You know what I'm saying? And even in NXT, it's not great. It's just good, right? It's very solid, I'd say. It's not amazing or elite, but it's good. You know, it's pretty good. And, it just comes down to the fact that Michin, man, I feel bad for Michin and Chelsea Green. I mean, I'm going to say something that probably is a hot take, but the Women's Midcard Championship needs to be canceled. It just does. We need to get rid of it. I don't know why I ever thought that this would be a good idea for them to do it, because you don't have any mid-card talent. You don't make a belt for something you don't have the void to fill. For example, when Roman Reigns was double champ, right? Everyone was complaining, oh, well, where's the other championship? Other people need a shot, da-da-da-da. And then they got the shot, and look what's happened with the world championship. It's meaningless, it's boring, and nobody cares about it, and it's an afterthought now. This is what happens when you give world championships and give power to people that don't deserve power. Triple H got booking power, and look how the product has turned out. You know what I'm saying? You have a global audience of Netflix, and you're struggling to pull 3 million viewers. And you're broadcasting to 180 million people, and only 3 million people are watching. So stop. You know what I'm saying? It just is what it is. Some people do not deserve power to do certain things. So the women's mid-card and undercard, which has been notoriously awful for the last year and a half, 2 years in WWE. You know, Rhea Ripley was even complaining that she had no valid opponents during her first championship reign. You know, she needs something new, something fresh, and actually valid opponents to fight against, credible opponents. This has been an issue that's been discussed for 2 years now, and the only thing they try to do to fix it is give us a mid-card belt, but you have no one good to hold that belt, so it means nothing. Lyra Valkyria's Intercontinental Championship reign will be at least okay, maybe, right? But this Chelsea Green reign has been awful. It's just her versus Michin or her versus BFAB on repeat. It's the same thing because they have no one else to shove in there. And I'm sure Zelina Vega will be next in the chamber to lose to Chelsea Green, or they'll bring in Blair Davenport, who's an absolute jobber who hasn't been seen in months. They'll bring her in to lose to Chelsea Green, but it's just bad. Right? This match was predictable. We knew Chelsea Green was going to walk out as champion, and she did. She lost the match by DQ, but she's still going to retain the championship that way. You know what I'm saying? And the choreography, like I said, was bad. It was slow-paced. It was boring. It was poorly wrestled. There was no athleticism displayed at all. There was no story to the match. The crowd was absolutely dead silent throughout 98% of this match, and there was no real antics or anything that were really entertaining as far as I'm concerned, right? I just found it boring and annoying. And I have to bring up the simple truth that Chelsea Green and Michin, this match was like maybe 10 minutes in length, maybe a little shorter than that, but there was at least like a botch per minute, or at least two botches per minute. And some of these botches were just bad, right? Some of the kicks just straight up were airballing, as I say, they're just straight up missing. The clotheslines, the punches look extremely fake. They're missing completely. The moves are not smooth. Very, very poorly wrestled, man. And I hate to say this, but most of the women's matches on the main roster, nearly like 80 to 90% of them are all like this, right? They're not as bad as this to this extent. I mean, this is one of the worst matches I've ever seen, but they're pretty bad. Like, they're remotely close. Like, if they throw out Ivy Nile versus Maxine Dupree, you're probably going to get a result very similar to this. In fact, you did like last year, so it is what it is, man. So you sit here, you watch this stuff, there's nothing good to say about it, so it is what it is. This is one of the worst matches I've ever seen, and I'm going to stand on that, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but the women's division is awful. You don't have any talent really outside of 4 people. If you can count on your finger the amount of people who have actually put on great matches over the last year or two in this company, in the women's division. Charlotte, Rhea, Bianca, Io, and Becky Lynch, and occasionally Nia Jax. And that's it. Those are the only 6 people you can actually point to and be like, wow, they wrestled multiple good matches over the last 2 years. And that's it. You have a roster of like 50 plus women, and only 5 of them are putting on good matches. So why does it matter? You know what I'm saying? Nobody cares about any of these people. They're all jobbers. Revamp the women's division. Bring up some people from NXT or do something, because this women's division sucks. It just does. I don't want to say that anyone needs to get fired or anything like that, because that's not good, right? It's not genuine, but I mean, come on, man. Someone's got to get moved down to NXT or something, bro. It's bad wrestling. It's bad content, so take it off the TV screen. It is that simple. Then we had Damien Priest basically came out and cut a promo. Damien Priest, this is actually one of his better promos. I mean, it still was mid at best, but it was one of his better promos because he's not a good promo cutter. So he comes out and basically says, now that I'm on Smackdown, my journey, I went from follower to leader. I went from bum to champion. I went from lackey, you know what I'm saying, to an upper guy, an upper main event guy, basically, right? He didn't say that word for word, but you get the point. And then after he says all of this, he basically declares for the Royal Rumble. I already explained earlier in this video why I think that's stupid, so we don't need to get back on that. But Damien Priest basically declares for the Rumble, and that's it. Then Jacob Fatu comes out. Jacob Fatu is a master at basically manipulating the audience. Basically what happens is Jacob Fatu in every promo will loudly say things and say it in a very intense manner. And because he does this, everyone just deems it as, oh, this is a phenomenal promo. But if you actually listen to what he's saying, he's not saying anything. Outside of when he said, Damien, you can braid your hair or twist your hair out as much as you want, but don't get it twisted. You know what I'm saying? This is my show, all this other stuff. I'm like, dude, Jacob Fatu has, correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, right? But he has not won more than maybe 1 or 2 singles matches since coming to WWE. You know what I'm saying? He's won no gold, besides the tag belts, obviously, right? But he's won no singles gold. He hasn't beat anyone of meaning. So why are we well, he beat Jey Uso before Survivor Series, so I'll give him that, right, for the qualifier match. But he hasn't done anything. You get the point. So how is he coming out here to interrupt Damian Priest and say, this is my show? He tells him, he's like, lay down or we gonna beat you down. You know what I'm saying? And I thought it would have been great going forward if Jacob Fatu basically ends every promo by saying, Fatu, and then Tama Tonga adds it and goes, with everybody saying, yeah. You know what I'm saying? But they didn't do that. Then Damian Priest basically brings up how, him and Jacob Fatu are both from the streets, and Jacob Fatu's like, I was in that box, homie. You know what I'm saying? I was in prison, basically is what he's saying when he says, I was in that box. He's like, yeah, I was in prison. I'm a beast. I'm whatever. I'm this. Dude, I'm so tired of hearing this. You know what I'm saying? It's wrestling. It's pro wrestling. You see what I'm saying? It is an entertainment form. You know what I'm saying? It's an entertainment media. Why are we pretending like this dude going to prison means anything in the storyline? Nobody cares, right? He went to prison, but he got beat down by Jimmy Uso at Survivor Series. So what does that matter? Did Jimmy Uso go to prison? It's just a very stupid thing how they try and weave that little actual IRL element into the storyline. Very weird. Anyways, Damian Priest basically says, if we're both from the streets, why are we even talking? A whole brawl ensues with Tama Tonga and Jacob Fatu and Damian Priest. They 2-on-1 him, and then the megastar LA Knight, comes out, and LA Knight basically brawls and helps out Damian Priest, and this sets up a match for LA Knight and Damian Priest versus Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga later in the night. Then shortly after this, I'm pretty sure we got DIY and what's it called? And Pretty Deadly versus Garza, Legado del Fantasma, whatever they go by now. I'm not even really going to waste time on this. Nobody cares about this match, and I kid you not, in my review for the Royal Rumble tomorrow, I'm probably going to skip over this, right? I'm going to reference who won, and then I'm just going to move on, because nobody cares about any of these tag teams that are in this ring right now, in this match. Nobody cares about. So let's just move on. We then got Liv Morgan versus Naomi. This match was unbearable, right? It just is. The amount of ads that took place during it was bad. Again, the match looks just like all these other women's matches. They look extremely choreographed. They're slow. They're wrestled in slow motion pretty much. Nobody cares who wins the match because it has zero significance. And then you also factor in that the moveset of both of these women is just not good, and it's not executed well, right? They botch a lot of moves. And honestly, at this point, it's getting egregious, and I really don't know what else to say about this match. It's just boring. It's bad. It's bland. It's botch filled. It's unwatchable. That's what it is. And at the end of the day, I just don't know what else to say about it, man. This match, Naomi wins off a roll-up, and then afterwards a brawl ensues, setting up Liv and Raquel probably challenging for the tag belts. No one cares about the women's tag division, right? If Liv and Raquel win the belts, let's just say they win it like next week on Raw or the week after or whatever, right? Who are they going to fight next? Nobody. So that doesn't matter if they win the belts or not. Nobody cares. It's an ongoing cycle with this booking. They build up to these little small payoffs, or these long stories for small payoffs, and it's like the story payoff goes nowhere. You know what I'm saying? So what? Liv and Raquel win the belts. Then what? Nothing. New Day turns heel in an amazing segment. Then what? Nothing. Back to being jobbers. Cody Rhodes wins the belt. Then what? Bad reign. It's the same stuff. So I don't even know what else to say about this. And now it's at this point where it's just unbearable to watch. And lo and behold, I go back after I finished recording that initial part of it, right? It's a little bit after Smackdown just ended. Like I said, I did not watch the last 50 to 40 minutes of the show. And I go back and see what I missed. And I see Miz wrestled Andrade, right? The Andrade, I'm assuming, won this match. I don't really know who won, but I'm going to assume Andrade won this match. And then after this happened, pretty much, the next thing was Tiffany Stratton in an interview segment with Pat McAfee and Michael Cole. They're basically asking her about the Rumble, and they do the same thing they've been doing for 2 weeks, just listing off off potential winners. Like, you could win, you could be facing Bianca at Mania, Naomi, Nia Jax, Bailey, just listing off a bunch of names. You know what I'm saying? It's just stupid. It's a way to waste your time and just say that they had a segment with the champion in it. That's it. Then Tiffany responds with the usual stuff. I don't care who wins the Royal Rumble because it's always going to be Tiffy time no matter what. At this point, Tiffany Stratton, the whole Tiffy time gimmick is annoying, it's boring, and it's already overplayed, right? Because at this point, all she's doing is saying the same stuff. It's the same thing every single week. Yada, 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 same one-line garbage, and then it's Tiffy time. Crowd pops. Yada, 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 same garbage. I'm the champion. Crowd pops. Yada, 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 bad one-liner, and then the crowd pops as her entrance plays and she walks out. It's the same stuff. Then after this, thankfully, Nia Jax or Candice LeRae came out and shut her up and, cut a little promo. Pretty forgettable. I mean, all she was basically saying is that she's entering the Royal Rumble and she's going to make Tiffany, regret that she ever turned her back on Candice and Nia. Nia then comes in the ring and beats the crap out of Tiffany Stratton, inadvertently hits Candice LeRae, but they gloss over that. Then Nia Jax basically beats the crap out of Tiffany Stratton with like this pop-up headbutt she does. Tiffany gets slammed down on a Samoan drop and then a leg drop that Nia Jax does, and then that's pretty much it. Tiffany Stratton basically so far has nothing to offer as champion, and there's no one who has anything to offer really at all in the women's division, like I've said multiple times in this video alone. So there you have it. Nia Jax will probably in the final 5 of the Royal Rumble tomorrow maybe, but she ain't winning. So there you have that, of course. Then the main event situation, as usual, Damien Priest stands tall. He's pinned Tama Tonga and got the W for him and LA Knight. LA Knight, the fact that he's been relegated to just doing bloodline, monotonous feuds and segments for the last month or so, when he was just a great U.S. champion like 2 months ago and they took it from him, and now he's doing this. It's sad, it's embarrassing, and it's really just it's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. But we have to just live with it at this point because that's just where LA Knight is. That's what the company thinks of him right now, and that's where they want to put him. Triple H has no idea what he's doing as a booker, and we just have to accept it and move on, I suppose. Actually, no, we're not going to move on. We're going to bash it and criticize it, and then we're going to move on. Then we get to the basically after this, Jacob Fatu comes in and beats the heck out of Damien Priest, and that's pretty much the way that the show ends. That's literally it. Hits a moonsault, hits him with a Samoan drop after Damien pins Tama Tonga, and Jacob Fatu stands tall, and that's pretty much that. I'm sure we'll see Jacob Fatu in the Rumble tomorrow, but yeah, nothing really else to say about this episode. This episode gets a good 2 out of 10. One of the worst episodes I've ever seen in my life, filled with bad matches except for one Jimmy Uso and Carmelo Hayes match, and that was pretty much all there was to speak about here. 2 out of 10 show. It was awful. I will be dropping a Royal Rumble review tomorrow night, so bear with me for that. I hope you guys will, at least watch that video or whatever, watch the Rumble, whatever you want to do tomorrow night. Just enjoy yourselves, take in the day, have an amazing day tomorrow, have an amazing night tonight, and as always, I thank you guys so much for watching. Have a phenomenal day. Peace out. One love.